Howdy Hexers, Panachills here. And I'm here with a new Scars of War spoiler for you all. This week we have another Wild Elf. The Aryndel Monk is an uncommon 3-cost, double wild threshold troop. He has 3 attack, 3 defense, and his effect reads Diligence. This gets +2/+2 and Spell Shield until the start of your next turn. Diligence is another new keyword for Scars of War. The way it works is pretty simple. The effect written after Diligence is triggered whenever the card readies. The card is a 3/3 for 3, which is an efficient and solid use of your resources. Generally speaking, if a troop's attack and defense match its cost, it is considered on curve, and any extra stats or effects are higher value than the price that you have already paid to play the card. In this case, the Diligence effect, while active, nearly doubles the value of the card. The card turns into a huge 5/5 with Spell Shield and becomes a monster card in value that would usually cost 6 or more to put into play. As you can see, cards that are similar to this card in its final form tend to have very high costs, or a higher cost coupled with a restriction. The catch, of course, is that before this card can become a 5/5 with Spell Shield, it has to ready, and before it can ready, it needs to exhaust itself. Attacking in with a 3/3 on turn 4 is usually going to be fairly safe if you're on the play. Attacking might be a little dangerous if you're on the draw. Your opponent having one or more turn to add another troop to the board can make all the difference between this card being a 5/5 with Spell Shield for almost the entire game, or a 3/3 that really never becomes more. Now, if this does manage to ready, it's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Only expensive, lethal, or extremely efficient troops are going to be able to match it in single combat. This card has a good chance of making your opponent commit substantial resources in order to remove it by blocking. And even if your opponent does manage to build a board where it can safely block the monk, the Spell Shield keyword makes it a good target for combat tricks and permanent buffs to clear the way. To maintain its elevated status, it has to ready every single turn, so it's probably going to want to attack as soon as it can, and every turn thereafter, turning it into a fairly aggressive tool at your disposal. However, if you're ever forced to leave the monk behind and miss the Diligence trigger, it's going to weaken back down to its less dominant and more easily handled 3/3 state, without Spell Shield. Now, despite having Spell Shield on the text of the card, the monk isn't completely impervious to your opponent's actions either. There are a few windows where it's going to be vulnerable to removal or opposing quick abilities. The turn it comes into play, and the very first turn where you're going to have to swing with it are both fairly obvious opportunities, but in addition, there's a brief moment at the start of the controlling player's turn, and before their troops have readied for that turn, where you're going to be able to sneak in a cheeky bit of removal. At uncommon rarity, this elf is going to be a very desirable pick for players in the limited format, providing an early aggressive troop that can either spin quickly out of control and start wiping away opposing health pools and board states, or even defensively presenting a solid body to help contend with your opponent's larger threats if you find yourself playing on the back foot. I expect to see this card taken out of draft packs quickly, and multiples could easily swing the direction of your evolving or sealed pools towards wild. Good limited picks to go along with the Aryndel Monk include the previously mentioned combat tricks and permanent buffs that you can stack on top of its already fearsome power. Cards that will help you enable Diligence by allowing you to exhaust your own troops without having to attack, and cards that can create Valors as well. One of the safest places you can stack your Valors is on top of a troop that's almost always going to be Spell Shielded. As for Constructed, from what I've seen so far, it's hard to imagine that this card is going to make any waves. The early drops in Wild are already fairly stacked no matter which Constructed format you look at, having more powerful troop drops both earlier and on the same curve. Its Spell Shield protection is a lot less valuable in a format where the times that it's going to be vulnerable are more easily picked apart by quick removal, and other troops offer a lot more versatility if they manage to stick to the board. All in all, I just really can't see a place for this to fit into the Constructed meta at this point in time. Perhaps if Diligence becomes a more important trigger in the future, it'll slip into those slots. That's all for today, folks, but keep your eyes peeled on Twitch, Twitter, and some of the HEX fan sites for more spoilers leading up to the release of Scars of War. Thanks for watching, and stay lucky.